All right, we keep you up to date on everything that's going on in the world of technology, and that includes some new announcements from Nvidia. And to talk about that, joining us, we have Mr. Luke Larson to kind of walk through what was announced, what it means. And Luke, hello, good to see you. And so tell us about this. What's Nvidia doing?
Yeah, some pretty exciting stuff. So yesterday we had a big event from Nvidia, obviously online, but the big news here are three new graphics cards. And graphics card launches, we get them kind of all the time, but every few years there are big ones. And this is a really big launch. So basically we're getting the RTX 3080, the RTX 3070, and we'll get to it later, but the RTX 3090, which is where things get really crazy. But the 3080 and the 3070 are the ones that are going to be actual graphics cards that people will probably go out and buy and put in their desktops and in their gaming systems. And even though these are the same price as they were in the previous generation, the 2080, 2070, so they are $699 and $499, still expensive cards. But these things are way, way more powerful than the previous generation. And it's really cool to see, a generational leap that's like way more than normal and way more than I even expected. So just to give you kind of an idea of what kind of performance we're talking about, in the previous generation, the most powerful card was the RTX 2080 Ti. And both of these new cards are significantly more powerful than that one. So it's like you get the top end of the last generation, and then the 3070, which isn't even the top end of this one, is way more powerful than that one. So it's kind of like really tipping the scales towards these new cards. So it's really great to see that kind of a leap in performance.
What is that going to allow you to do? So you're saying this big leap, like what kinds of things will people be able to do with this one that they couldn't do before?
Yeah, so the big thing is 4K gaming. It's something that people have been talking about forever, and even though we've been talking about it forever, it still isn't always really possible. And with these cards, Nvidia is saying that you're going to be able to do 4K PC gaming at 60 frames per second consistently. And obviously that depends. That's going to vary game to game, and there's a lot of different factors to that. But that is an exciting thing to finally get to see. That you can game in complete 4K native resolution and hit those good frame rates. And I'm sure if you in different games, you'll even be able to go beyond that in 4K. So that is really exciting for the average person, average PC gamer. You're going to be able to finally get to 4K.
So you go from the RTX 3070 and 3080, and then there's the next level. You mentioned 3090. So what does that bring to the table?
Yeah, and like I said, this is where things get really crazy. As you can see it there, it's just a huge graphics card. They call it the BFG PU, which is kind of silly, an Nvidia thing. But it's just a massive graphics card, and here's what they're claiming. They're claiming that this RTX 3090 can play games at 8K at 60 frames per second. That's just insane. And they're not really able to do that natively, and they're not able to render that natively because that would be really crazy. But they did show a video of people playing in 8K, and they use some fancy AI, they call it DLSS, to actually boost up those the resolution to 8K. But even just the idea of playing in 8K is kind of crazy, and apparently this 3090 can actually do it.
Wow. So these are the three new cards from Nvidia, and then of course, we'll probably see whatever kind of response everybody else comes up with. But I know also one other thing is they all have HDMI 2.1 support, which is going to be huge for all those new TVs coming out.
Yeah, and that's where things get interesting because we're talking about PC gaming here, and Nvidia doesn't have a presence on the console side of things, and we all know that we've got some consoles coming later this year. And those are powered by AMD, and a lot of these different features you can see how they clearly, have to compete with what those consoles have claimed to do. 8K is one of them, as silly as that was, like when those consoles were first announced, 8K was the thing that was on the table. So it's no coincidence that NVIDIA is talking about 8K. And then HDMI 2.1 is a really cool feature because basically that's going to allow NVIDIA to compete with those consoles in terms of high refresh rates. So because of HDMI 2.1, it's just a port standard, but that's available on these new OLED TVs. So you can all of a sudden hook up your PC gaming system to your TV that has a high refresh rate, and then you can actually do that. You can actually get really smooth
I
gaming
love
in the
that.
same way that these new consoles are promising that we're going to get. So it's kind of leveling the playing field again, and console versus PC thing continues, and this pushes it one more step further.
It's definitely exciting, and I know we've got write-ups about all this too at Digital Trends, so people can kind of go into details about it, read more about what these are going to bring to the table. But always cool seeing more innovation, especially these big leaps forward, like you were talking about, Luke. So, as always, good to talk to you. Thank you, Luke Larson, for sharing all this details with us.
Thanks, Greg.